thank you all very much, and thank all of you who helped put tonight together. Whoever was in charge of the weather, awesome. Spectacular job. But we've had a good afternoon out here, and this evening's been wonderful. And I'm darn well fed. I appreciate that. I look Italian, I act Irish, so I eat Italian, I drink Irish, and I've had a little bit of both tonight. So it's been wonderful, and I appreciate the support of you all here. I think that Eastern Shore is going to have an interesting perspective on this race. Melody mentioned that I grew up in Fairfax. My wife and I both grew up there. Went to school in Fairfax County Schools until high school. Now, my wife moved in 3 doors down from me when we were in high school, which turned out to be the best move anybody ever made in my life. So I didn't quite marry the girl next door, but I only got a little more exercise than that. But she went to James Madison when I was at UVA, and so I burned up I-64 there at the end, and we were married right out of college and moved back to Northern Virginia. And when I was growing up there, I didn't get lectures from my parents about how you be a citizen or what you do in your community, but I certainly observed what they did, and I observed how they lived. And a lot of the things that I naturally took up were based on their example, and it was started in high school and continued in college. I was at UVA, and at UVA fighting sexual assault. Not a pleasant subject, but one that I discovered needed an awful lot of work. Came back home and I refereed before I came home. Coached basketball team, kids basketball team, not my kids. And then went to law school later. And one of the winters there worked the overnight shift in a homeless shelter. And you learn a lot being there on the ground. It's an interesting experience. And then when I got out of law school, I started working, once I got my feet under me as a lawyer, in the area of mental health, where I've stayed involved to this day. Well, all those things, and working with veterans on helping them make cases against the VA, all those things I did before there was any thought of running for office. That was just things to do in the community because I love where I live, and that's how you live a full and proper life, as I observed my parents doing. Well, later on I ran for the Senate and did some other things, and have carried some of these, like mental health has been a policy issue for me since I arrived in Richmond, just by way of one example. But my opponent hadn't done anything, and forget these things. I haven't heard of anything yet outside of his own kid's school in Virginia that he ever did until he wanted to be governor. The year before he filled out that form for the first time, he put out a book. Some of you may know I put out a book a couple of months ago, and it was on our federalism fights with the federal government, which more than enough material for a book, unfortunately. But he put out a book too a few years ago in 2007. It was called What a Party. And you can get it on Amazon used for $4, including shipping. Yes, that is an encouragement for you to do that. And in that book, in 2007, he referred to himself as a New Yorker still. And I won't exactly say there's nothing wrong with New Yorkers. I know we have some here, but they wised up and came here. But in 2007, he still didn't think of himself as a Virginian. And so far as I know, he wasn't doing anything in his community. He lives on the other side of the town where I grew up. And as much as Northern Virginia is thought of as very transient, what it really is a bunch of more people keep coming. It isn't so much that all of us there leave. I'm still there. My wife's still there. And he doesn't have roots in Virginia. He hasn't worked in the communities around Virginia, whether it's in Charlottesville or Fairfax or wherever. You all live here. Your version of that is here, and that's a big difference. It is a big difference, and it's a difference that is very much reflected in preparation to govern. And here it does matter that I've been in the state Senate for 8 years. And it does matter that I've been the Attorney General for over 3 years. One of the two of us is going to win this race this year. But only one of us would be prepared to assume the office of the governorship upon election. And that's me. I don't need on-the-job training. I don't need to learn Virginia. I've been doing it for my whole life. And there's still a lot more to learn. There's still a lot more to learn. But I didn't start that process when I started running for governor. I started that when I was growing up. And I continued doing that as I came back as an adult to my communities where I lived. And I carried that into the state Senate with me. And obviously, as a Republican from Fairfax, I was covered by the Endangered Species Act, so we get something useful out of that. But I could win in the toughest part of the state for a Republican. I did it 3 times. That third time, barely. But you know what they call you when you win by 101 votes?
The winner.
Senator.
Yeah.
Yes, that's exactly right. And it was a recount. And when I won that race, I was the last Republican left standing in Northern Virginia in the state Senate out of 10 state Senate districts. And this sort of the plan they used in all those races is the same one Terry McAuliffe's using. It's very negative. It focuses on very divisive issues, not that they're not important, but what matters in any given election is what matters to voters. And in this election, we're going to focus on the number one issue to voters, and that is jobs and the economy. We did this 4 years ago. Now, I was at the bottom of the ticket 4 years ago, so you might not have noticed, which is fine. It worked out well at the bottom of the ticket. But all my predecessors, y'all will recall, ran for Attorney General as top cop. And, you heard criminal justice this and that and so forth. And I don't cede any ground to anybody on those issues. But I recognize the importance of the Attorney General and of the concern of voters with the economy. And if you think about the things that you do know that have been going on in the Attorney General's office while I've been there, they've all been about protecting the Constitution and liberty and opening up the door to economic opportunity. All of them. All of them. So that focus has been important for Virginia. It's been important for America. And some of those fights we win, and some of them we lose. Last month, we finished out one with the EPA, which we won. We won that one. That one was worth almost $300 million to the taxpayers of Virginia and Fairfax County. So, and it's bad when the Democrat Board of Supervisors will get in a lawsuit with me, not against me, against this president and his EPA 3.5 months before Election Day. That's how bad it was. You'd think 300 million would tell the tale, but these dollar figures can kind of get in the way. But to put it in context, that was for one regulation over one creek. $300 million. Crushing potential burden. And we've avoided it. Nonetheless, that tells you something about the attitude we're facing in Washington. And it is a very difficult one for us as we look ahead to trying to create as positive an economic future as we possibly can. And I know how important that is here. Some of you may follow some of the economic numbers, the unemployment numbers, and I think Virginia was just reported at 5.3%. Well, you all know very well that if you drive around Virginia with me, that's not what you're going to see everywhere. That is not what you're going to see everywhere. You don't have that here. And I know the need here. You come with me. Last week I was in Southwest Virginia, in Buchanan County, in Dickinson County. Per capita income down there is very, very low. And the number of economic opportunities is small. And when you see regulatory impositions from Washington that would eliminate potentially, or at least worsen those opportunities, shrink them, crush them, really. You know Washington isn't for our folks. They are not for our people. If you just think of Southwest Virginia, Appalachia, one of the poorest parts of America, and all of the most aggressive regulating of this administration would do more harm to them than anyone else. And Republicans especially always need to remember, we are on the side of the poor.
That's right.
Yes, we are.
We are on the side of the poor. If you're for free markets, you're for the poor. The first people hurt, and the people hurt the worst by this kind of across-the-board regulation, are the poor. It is as certain as gravity. There's no escaping it. There is no escaping it. You know, there are days I would think liberals would pass bills to outlaw gravity if they thought they could get the fat vote, you know. But you can pass the law, and I've had this debate on the Senate floor when they were trying to redefine truth effectively. And I got up one day and said, look, we can pass a bill that says the sky is green. You can send it on up to the governor, and he can sign that bill. And when you walk out the door and look up, guess what that sky is going to look like? Exactly the same way it did when you came in here. You don't get to redefine truth. You don't get to do it. No one in government can do that. No one can do that. And that's what we're confronting. That's what we're confronting as we try to create an environment of opportunity in Virginia. And Governor McDonnell has focused on trying to do that. He ran in '09, of course, with the economy as the #1 priority as well. You'd expect a governor to do that. It was a little more surprising for an attorney general to do that, but the result was the most votes for an attorney general candidate in history in Virginia. So obviously the people of Virginia responded to that. And they also, I would also suggest they responded to my very blunt, kind of how I do everything, but very blunt offensive position in defending the Constitution, that we were going to be aggressive, that if the federal government crossed these lines, that we would push back. Now, I just didn't expect so many opportunities to keep my campaign promise, but we've had those and we've kept it. And we've kept it. And we have also, one of the things I've done is organize other states. We have expanded the effort across America. You don't see this in Virginia, but we have successfully expanded the effort across America to push back from the states against Washington. And it is Virginians who came up with that system. It's called federalism. You know, you didn't hear much about it once you got out of 10th grade civics class until the last couple of years. And we are living in our office federalism in action. And that's going to be very important. Now, let me go back to that EPA case. My client was VDOT, but it was a client. Even when you're elected Attorney General, it is still the case that lawyers advise and clients decide. If Cree Deeds had beaten Bob McDonnell in 2009, I seriously doubt that my client, who works for the governor, would have decided to proceed against the EPA 3.5 months in front of the president's election day. Now, just side note, the 3.5 months before election day was just the deadline. It was when it was. We didn't time that. We made our decision and we moved. That's it. But if Cree Deeds was governor, I don't have a client. And we don't get to push back. Virginia doesn't push back. You need a governor and an attorney general who are willing to do this. And Governor McDonnell was willing to cut us loose. We'd obviously already demonstrated a willingness to be aggressive in these sorts of things. And I actually argued that case in court myself. And we did very well. We did very well. But to continue that effort to rein in the federal government while trying to shrink our own is, I believe, the best way to create opportunity for the private sector. And when we talk about creating jobs, we're not talking about government doing the hiring. We're talking about you doing the hiring.
Yeah.
The greatest asset we have in Virginia is Virginians. Government's best role is to get out of the way
Amen.
and turn loose our best resource, Virginians. Same is true across the country, but we have a government in Washington that doesn't get that. And I have an opponent who fits pretty well in there, in the kind of crony capitalist routine, and that's kind of coming around, falling down around his ears right now with green tech and this car company that was supposed to be an excuse for why we should all vote for him, until it wasn't. They haven't come up with a new explanation yet, but don't worry, they're working on it. On Monday, we're going to go up on television in most of Virginia, positive. You can guess what the other side will do with us. They've been doing it online if you've paid attention. It's the war on women mantra, that whole pounding. It's really just carrying forward what they were doing in 2012 into 2013, which is the same play I've seen run in 4 races. And I'm 4-0. Doesn't mean I'll go 5-0, but it does mean that play hasn't worked yet on me. This is a new level. This is a guy who can raise a lot of money, which tonight helps with, and so they're gonna do that again. And so we're starting out positive on some of the biographical stuff that I've shared with you that people just don't know. One of the lessons I got out of 2012 is get over it. And here's my explanation of that. I have never, let me rephrase it. It is awkward to be a candidate and to talk about yourself. I'll just say it that way. It's just very uncomfortable. I can debate policy till the cows come home. We can debate the cows and how they should get home. I'm all there. I can go for hours and hours and hours and hours. But I am very, very, very uncomfortable talking about myself. I saw in Mitt Romney a candidate who is a much better man than he allowed himself to be portrayed.
That's it.
That's it. That's right.
Whether he was your first choice or not, I think it's pretty hard to debate just the statement that Mitt Romney's a good man. Well, they dismantled him last summer, and our side didn't fight back. And he was uncomfortable with it, and I could see it. I got to talk to him a little more than other people do at the rallies, partly because we're a swing state, which, by the way, I can live without, but I'm sure you could too. Nonetheless, we are. And so I got to know him a little bit, and he's a very good person who was very uncomfortable, really pushing back hard on that himself. And his wife did well with that. She was quite a great aide, and my wife is the one you'll see in our commercial. You won't see me. She's more likable than I am, so it's not a high bar, but nonetheless, we're going to talk about these things. I'm over it.
Good.
We're not going to let them do to us what they did to Romney last year.
Amen.
We're not going to let that happen. And I'll tell you, a key part of that is going to be you all. I appreciate your contributions. I appreciate you being here, Melody. I appreciate you being the whipping girl that I know you were to make this happen, including with us. But it really is going to come down to one-on-one campaigning. We're going to be outspent. Now, I've been outspent in all 4 of my races. Mind you, it has not been a goal. It's just worked out that way. Grassroots has always been my strength and my forte, and it's because I run on principles. And that is fuel for a grassroots campaign. Nobody has to have any more faith in me than that I will simply do what I say I'm going to do. And I have 4 elections you can look back over and decide for yourself whether that's the case. And I would say this, if I was going to crumble, it would have been in Fairfax. The rest of Virginia is a whole lot more politically friendly to me than Northern Virginia. Now, I love where I live and I love where I grew up. I'm proud of it. But it doesn't mean it's easy to win politically up there. If that was going to happen, it would have already happened. And so I have that record. And you can look at that record. And I've carried it into campaigns, and then I've gone and governed and done what I said I was going to do.
Right.
And some people find that unusual. I've had people grab me by the lapels since winning the Attorney General's race and say, Ken, I can't believe you're doing exactly what you said you were going to do. And I don't know whether to be flattered or offended. But I get it. But I do get it. I understand. I've had that disappointment myself over and over and over. And I am very cognizant of not breaking that faith.
Amen.
So that is not something you should have to worry about. And if it is, that's what boots are for, and you can put one into my backside. So, but it hasn't happened in over 10 years. It hasn't happened in Fairfax County, which is just running in Fairfax, which is tougher than statewide politically. And we're going to need your help first to get over this hurdle here to win this race, because we are going to be outspent again. I mean, it'd be unrealistic to think otherwise. McAuliffe doesn't have much Virginia connection. He doesn't know how Virginia government works. The Virginia pilot, of all things, they love me. I call it the pile it. But
Pile.
they ran a front page article on McAuliffe, not even knowing who's in the cabinet. He doesn't know how Virginia government operates. And for them to do that is really something, frankly. But it tells you how disconnected he is. I've only met the man 4 times. And none of them before 2013.
Wow.
Now, I'm not the be-all and end-all, but I've been pretty active in Northern Virginia for as long as he's lived there and more, and he's never crossed my path. Anywhere. Until he was running for governor. Actually, not even that. Until he got the nomination from the Democrats running for governor, because I didn't meet him last time either. And, that disconnect is something I need you all to share, because I think it's important. And I think people on the Eastern Shore are going to think it's important. And I think the reason is because it is important. That makes a difference. And we're going to have a lot more to share about where we're going as we go forward. We'll do policy rollouts here. We'll start before the convention. So we offer a positive vision that we would like you to communicate. But let me tell you this, and I'm comparing to last year. I'm going to kind of my grassroots roots. Last year, if you were doing grassroots with that Romney campaign, you probably understand this description. I felt like we were all just sort of plugged into a mass media effort, and we were just part of it. We were just another tool. And I don't mean that negatively, but it wasn't good grassroots. That is not how we're running this campaign. We are relying on you and your brain and your heart and your commitment. You would be shocked. You can walk out of here today and engage somebody on this race. Most of you would probably be very surprised that you could answer about 80 or 90% of anybody's questions about this race right now. I mean, let's face a little secret here. We're not normal. We are, all of us, by our presence here, we are more politically attentive than 98% of the rest of Virginia. You know a lot more than your neighbors, and you can share that. And when you get stumped, that's a bonus. And here's why that's a bonus. How many times have you made one of those phone calls and the person on the other end really didn't want to be talking to you? And you kind of press ahead, and we need to do that. But if you are having one of these conversations, somebody you know, and you come across something that you don't know the answer to, I don't know where Ken is on that. But I'll tell you what. I'll find out and get back to you. Well, you have just gotten yourself the gold standard for a volunteer. They want to hear from you. The next time you call back, they want to hear from you because you're bringing them something they want. You're not asking them for something. You're giving them something that they want. And you create that opportunity just by having the interaction. The campaign last year didn't trust us to do that. They tried to run this centrally, which is virtually by definition not conservative, and then out of Boston, which I think we were all very well behaved about not joking about that during the campaign. But it doesn't work. The other side kicked our ever-loving tails on the ground last year. They didn't reinvent campaigning. They plugged all their technology into good old-fashioned one-on-one campaigning. So when you're at church tomorrow, you look around and remember this. Unless you do something about it, less than half of those people are going to show up to vote. Unless you do something about it. Well, what can you do about it? Well, you can start calling them one at a time. You can talk to them after church. You can push your pastor to not endorse. Just turn them out. Just turn them out. When you go to work on Monday and when you go to community groups, Ruritan, when you go to Boy Scouts, whatever it may be, start talking to these folks. And don't assume just because they agree with you, we're done. Because we're not. Because less than half of them are showing up. You then have to get them out. You got to get them committed to coming out. And by that I mean to vote. You get them to come out and volunteer, they'll vote. Get them to donate, they'll vote because they're invested. Then this campaign has become in some small part their campaign. And I appreciate you all doing that now and already. Please keep us in your prayers. We're going to need it. We're going to need it. And don't make today the last day in the campaign for you. We're going to have ourselves, one of these 37 lieutenant governor candidates is going to get nominated. And either Rob or Mark will be our AG candidate. And we're building a grassroots organization that the whole team can just plug right into. That's the goal. It isn't just about winning the governor's race. It's about our team winning. And we're going to do it on substance, and we're going to do it on merit, and we're going to do it with hard work. And we're going to be right about more things than the other side. That's how we're going to do it. Thank you all very much.